All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Fresh Cut with Krich. This is week 45. This is a special episode tonight. This is a new beginning for the Fresh Cut. I'm watching you guys as you tune in live. I know on my last show, I told you guys that I would actually do the show through YouTube and Google Hangouts. However, I have found out that I can still go live via Facebook Live, and I can still invite special guests. So this is the way that I'm going to choose to do it. This is neat. So there is a way I can do it. But just to let you guys know, when I bring on my special guest, I can only have one special guest on the screen at a time. That's all well and fine. I'll switch back and forth. What's up, Eric? I know you probably want to be a special guest on one of my shows, but on tonight's show, for week 45, we have two special guests that I am going to bring on when I get to my college football segment. That is my dad, the one and only Kelvin B. Richardson. He's coming live to you all the way from Ocala, Florida. And we have my boy, Chris Price, big Tennessee Volunteer fan, went to Florida State with the kid. So those are going to be my two special guests for tonight's show. Now, I know a lot of people are going to want to get on. A lot of people are going to want to be special guests. You have plenty of time. College football just gets started this Saturday. Every week, I'm going to try to invite 2 or 3 guests on the show. Chris Price said his introduction was trash. Well, Chris Price, you helped me out with the practice videos and everything like that. But like I said, I believe you're coming. Let me ask you this, Chris Price. You're coming live from Atlanta, right? I know you're a big Tennessee Volunteer fan, but tell me where you're coming live to. I need to see where you're viewing in from. I think it's from Atlanta, right? You're coming live to me from Atlanta. So how about this, Chris Price? You've been one of my faithful viewers for the Fresh Cut. You tune in week out. You comment on my videos. You give me feedback. So, I mean, you've been a faithful viewer to my show, man. I don't know what much more I can say. So yes, he's coming to us live all the way from Atlanta. So we have a special guest from Atlanta, Georgia, and we have a special guest from Ocala, Florida tonight. So let's get right to it. I'm going to start off the show talking about the NFL. As you guys know, we still got preseason. NFL doesn't get going for another week and a half, 2 weeks. So kicking things off with this past week, we had the Baltimore Ravens and the Miami Dolphins. Ravens won 31-7. Like I said, this is preseason, so a lot of the starters usually don't play too much during preseason. Let's see, Ryan Mallett had 113 yards. He was 13-22. Okay, not bad. But the Ravens got the victory. Dolphins only scored 1 touchdown. They're 1-1 in the preseason. Then we also had the Buffalo Bills and the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles won 20-16. Matt McGloin was 12 of 20, 131 yards, 1 pick. Not too much going on there. Carson Wentz didn't really play. He had 2 carries for 3 yards. Not too much going on there. Okay, so let's see. Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Remember to tune in on Tuesday nights, Hard Knocks with the Tampa Bay Bucks. They lost their first preseason game. Pretty good last episode on Hard Knocks. Roberto Aguayo. Remember I told you guys that he got cut. They actually showed the whole sequence. It was pretty sad, but I mean, like the coach said, you're a kicker. You got to make your kicks. So Bucks got rid of Aguayo, but the Bucks beat the Jaguars 12-8. Jameis, 21 of 29, 196 yards. Okay. Jameis getting a little preseason action there. Let's see who receiving. Mike Evans, 5 receptions, 57 yards. He's going to be big for you fantasy owners out there. Jameis to Mike Evans. Jameis is projected to be one of the top 10 quarterbacks in fantasy league this year. So, for those guys that, I know a lot of people don't take quarterbacks early, but Jameis is going to be a pretty good pickup, man. Jameis Winston. I expect a big year out of Jameis this year. My boy Sean Hickey's tuned in. He's tuned in for the first guest show. It's going to, like I said, I was told. Now, this is a request. All right, I had a special request from a couple of people a couple of shows ago saying, hey, you need to invite some special guests. You know, it's all well and fine that we see you, but now I have a way to do it through Facebook. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be good. So tonight will be the first test. So we had the Seattle Seahawks and the Minnesota Vikings. Seahawks won 20-13. Sam Bradford, 7 of 11, 95 yards from Minnesota. Russell Wilson got a little preseason action. Oh, pretty good stats here. 13-18, 206 yards, 2 touchdowns. Not bad, not bad. Russell Wilson getting it done out there. Dalvin Cook, 7 carries, 40 yards. You know, he'll also be a great pickup for running backs out there. I hope Dalvin has a great season this year. Dalvin Cook. I wish he could have went to the Bucks. Could have been with Jameis, but things worked out a little bit differently. We had the Panthers and the Titans. Marcus Mariota slipped past the Panthers, 34-27. Marcus Mariota. Titans are 1-1 in preseason, so Tennessee Titans got the victory. We also had the Chiefs. Let's see here. These are all preseason games. Like I said, a lot of people don't really watch preseason. I don't really tune into every preseason game because a lot of the times the starters only play one quarter, maybe a half. You don't want to get your starters hurt in preseason. Let's see here. Another game that we had from this past week. Let's see why this loads. We had the Chiefs and the Bengals. Chiefs won 30-12. Patrick Mahomes, 10 of 14, 88 yards, 2 touchdowns. Andy Dalton didn't get much action, 7 of 13, 98 yards. Not a big deal. Moving right along here in the NFL, we had while that loads, we had the Packers and the Redskins. Green Bay won 21-17. Aaron Rodgers, 6 of 8, 37 yards, 1 touchdown. You don't want to get that guy hurt. Brent Huntley came in, 9 of 10, 107 yards, 1 touchdown. Richard, I'm going to talk about Kaepernick a little bit later in the show. I'm going to ask my special guest about that whole situation. It's a crazy situation going on with Colin Kaepernick. Cowboys won 24-19 over the Colts. Dak Prescott, 7 of 8, 106 yards, 1 score. Didn't play too much. Remember Ezekiel Elliott still going through that appeal for you fantasy owners out there. That guy is going to be suspended for 6 games, so he's one of those guys that I don't know if you're going to pick him up early or, you'll be able to use him after the 6th game up into the playoffs. But hopefully we'll see what happens with Elliott. The Texans played the Patriots. Texans won 27-23. All right, so Houston got the victory. Then we had the Cardinals and the Bears. That was a good one. Bears won 24-23. It was a close game. I want to look at something special from this game. There was what they call a kick six, when the team kicks a field goal and misses it, and then the opposing team catches it, runs it all the way back. Well, that happened in this game. Let me see here. Let me scroll down here. Deontay Thompson returned a missed field goal for 109 yards and a touchdown. That's something that's very rare. Very rare. Like the solar eclipse today. Very rare. It doesn't happen too often. Thompson returned a kickoff for 109 yards. All right. Kick six. That's what they call it. And then we had the Broncos and the San Francisco 49ers. Denver won 33-14. Let's see here. 33-14, Denver won. That was another preseason game. But like I said, preseason game. The Broncos are 2-0 in the preseason, so I don't know if that means anything. Richard said, how about those Cowboys? The Cowboys going to be interesting. They're going to be an interesting team to look at this year. Without Ezekiel Elliott for the first 6 games, we'll see what happens. But Dak Prescott, Dez Bryant, they got a lot of guys. Cowboys did great last year. So hopefully we'll see what happens with those guys this year. Trevor Siemian was 8-11, 93 yards and a touchdown. And I think that was pretty much it for week 2 preseason of the NFL. So NFL should be interesting this year. I just signed up for my 2 fantasy leagues. Believe me, I'm in 2 money leagues. I'm expecting to win some money this year. I got to win something this year. So for you fantasy owners out there, I'm going to give a shout out to my boy Sean Hickey and Noel Brown. These guys, I don't know if you guys ever heard of mock drafts. They're like practice drafts that you do. You can change your strategy. They don't count against nothing. So if you don't get a great team, so be it. Do another mock draft. I actually did a few mock drafts this past week, and they do help you in developing your draft strategy. You basically join in a practice draft with a lot of random people. So pretty good, pretty good. So I've actually learned that mock drafts are important. All right. So I am about to start my college football preview. As you guys know, college football, I've been waiting to talk about this for a while. College football starts officially this Saturday, August 26th. Not too many great games this weekend. I'm going to tell you guys pretty much who plays this weekend, but you know, it's the first weekend. But basically what I'm doing tonight is a little preview of some of the top conferences. I'm going to start with the ACC conference, in which I'm going to go ahead and bring in my first special guest of tonight. So let's see how this works. Let's see here. First special guest of tonight, I'm going to go ahead and bring in my boy, Chris Price from Atlanta. Dad, you're up next. Let me go ahead and bring in Chris Price. So hang on one second, guys. I'm inviting Chris Price to the show so we can talk a little bit about college football here, ask a few questions to this guy. I am now inviting this guy to. Here we go. Let's see how Facebook Live does. Let's see if he gets my invite. Let's see if he can connect. While that's inviting, oh, there he is. There's Chris Price. Chris Price is there. You guys can see him. What's up, Chris? Coming to you live from Atlanta, Georgia.
Man, I was trying to find my Butch Please tee, but I couldn't find it, so can't find it just yet. Chris
Price is in. So, Chris, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and start with the ACC, and I'm going to get to the SEC. I know you got a lot to talk about in the SEC, so I'm just going over some of the ACC previews. Obviously, for this year, ACC, they're saying this is there's always this talk between who's the best conference out of the ACC and SEC. Here's some things for you, Chris. So ACC last season, they stacked up on the trophy case in the bowl games. Remember, Clemson beat Alabama for the national title. Louisville quarterback Lamar Jackson won the Heisman. Florida State beat Michigan in the Orange Bowl. 11 teams finished with a winning record. ACC capped a strong regular season. So usually, with the ACC, it all comes down to Florida State and Clemson. Clemson, Florida State, which they obviously have to play each other. That's going to be like the first big ACC game right there is Clemson versus Florida State. Deshaun Watson's not there anymore. We'll see what happens with the quarterback position. But what do you think, Chris, is going to happen this year in the ACC? Do you think that without Deshaun Watson, can Clemson win the ACC again? Or Florida State, they're returning one of the league's top quarterbacks, DeAndre Francois. Got a defense that's returning 9 starters. Definitely Dervin James coming back. Or do you think Florida State can regain the ACC? Or do you think Miami and Mark Richt are going to make an impact this year? His second, his second season. Do you think Mark Richt is going to make an impact with Miami? Or what do you see happening in the ACC this year?
Well, I'll tell you what, I got I like Virginia Tech with Justin Fuente. He's a really good offensive mind. I saw him in Memphis a couple years back. Virginia Tech first year coach last year, so it probably wasn't as good as they would have hoped. But I think they were pretty good. I think were they in the championship? Virginia Tech. Who was in the championship?
Virginia Tech last year. Let's see. They're one of them teams that. And here's the funny thing: Florida State doesn't usually play them every year.
They always got good corners too, but I think the coach.
They were. I mean, obviously Clemson came out on top, but they're saying this Miami Virginia Tech game is going to be a big game this year.
Oh yeah, that's
going to be a big matchup.
But I think it's going to be Florida State, Louisville, then Clemson, and I think NC State's going to be challenging Clemson. NC State, they're returning a lot of starters now.
Yeah, I read that NC State, they're saying, could be the team to watch in the ACC. We shall see about that. But here's the thing: Miami, all right, they have a tough match. They have a tough schedule coming up. They have to play Florida State and Virginia Tech, and they host Clemson Oh no, the Hokies, the Virginia Tech hosts Clemson in late September. As far as Louisville goes, I mean, that's going to be a big game too. Florida State, Louisville. You remember those guys? They blew Florida State out last year. Florida State's defense didn't look like they didn't know what was going on. And this year we have to play Lamar Jackson again, but this time the game will be in Tallahassee. So maybe the home crowd can get behind Florida State. Maybe they can get their revenge. That's the game I'm actually going to. So I figured if I go to one game, hey, that'll be a good one to go to. So you think this year can Florida State beat Louisville this year?
Miami, NC State, and Louisville at home. So that's definitely a benefit. I mean, your toughest game in conference is going to be at Clemson. That's not a big draw for Florida State. So Florida State, I think, is definitely going to win the coastal, or not the coastal. I'm sorry, the Atlantic. And then I like Justin Fuente a little too much, so I think that Virginia Tech is going to be the. Hold on, I got my. Hey, come here. You want to say hi to Kelvin? You want to say hi to Kelvin? You were on the show live. Don't embarrass me.
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, what's going on? You live on Fresh Cut. Make his grand entrance.
Yeah, it's world debut. Can you get him before he picked up the hammer? Anyways, so that's who I think when you have kids, this kind of thing happens. Don't have kids until you're like 35. Kelvin, 35. So that's where I'm looking at ACC wise is probably Florida State versus Virginia Tech.
It says Florida State, Virginia Tech. All right, good pick. So let me see what my dad thinks, and now I'm going to switch over to my dad, and then you're going to get a button that says rejoin broadcast. So stay into the broadcast because I'm going to come back to you. Let me see what he thinks about the ACC and who could come out on top this year. Obviously, I know he's a big Florida State fan, but let me see who he thinks could possibly challenge the Seminoles this year, whether it be Louisville, Clemson, like you said, NC State. And then NC State be one of those what we call a trap game. That could be a trap game. And let me see what he says.
Always be one too.
Yep. And let me see what he says. So hang on 1 second, Chris. I'm going to come back to you. Hang on. Let's see. All right, one moment. Let me go back here. For some reason, it won't let me bring him in. All right, so hang tight 1 second. Let's see what's going on here.
Let's say one thing on Kaepernick.
Oh, I know why. All right, yeah, so hang on 1 second, Chris. So you're going to rejoin the broadcast, and I'm going to come right back to you. So hang on.
All right. I need.
All right, so you are now looking at Kelvin B. Richardson live, coming to you from Ocala, Florida. So I was just talking to Chris Price, as you saw a little bit about the ACC. Obviously Clemson won the national championship last year. They're obviously coming back. I read they got 3 top receivers coming back. Ray McLeod, Deion Kane. There's another guy they got coming back, and they got a new quarterback coming back. Deshaun Watson, he's gone. But it's one of those things that what do you think is going to happen this year in the ACC? Do you think Clemson could challenge Florida State again? Florida State's coming back with a top defense. Offensively, they got DeAndre Francois coming back. We got to fill the role of Dalvin Cook. Got a freshman receiver that we picked up that they said is going to be pretty well. We look pretty good at receiver. Naquan Murray, or do you think that Clemson or Louisville is going to give Florida State a run for their money in the ACC this year?
All right. Well, hey, first of all, good afternoon, K. Rich. And I wore something special for my friend Chris Price because I know he always got his Tennessee gab on. So you can look at the gold tie. Garnet and gold, baby. Garnet and gold. So, yeah, I think I know Florida State, they don't make no careless mistakes. I expect them to be back there for the ACC title this year. And I don't put none of those teams that you just mentioned, like North Carolina State and Clemson. Those guys, those guys have got some good programs up there. The ACC is really building up their program. So I'm going to go with Clemson. because I think North Carolina State, they beat us, I think, last year, and it was like a fluke. But, in Clemson, we should have beat Clemson last year as well. But they're coming high off of beating Alabama, and so they're going to be riding high. Good programs up there in the Dabo, Sweetie. So I think it'll be Florida State and Clemson. And I think that Florida State will come out on top. And I do feel that we're going to get our another championship under our belt this year.
All right, all right. I do agree. I do agree there. We do have a lot of potential going forward with Florida State this year. Like I said, the biggest question mark I believe with Florida State is always the offensive line and replacing Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was just one of those special players that we had. But saying, we recruited this guy by the name of Cam Akers that they said is going to step up right away. Obviously, we have Cam Akers and your guy, Jacques Patrick, a guy that you thought should have got a lot more playing time last year.
Right.
You seem to think Jimbo used he tended to use Dalvin Cook a little too much, and Jacques Patrick is one of those guys that can pound the ball and he can actually get it done for you. So you think we'll get it done in the running back position?
Well, I think Jimbo do like a lot of coaches do. When a guy's a senior and he's getting ready to go ahead and give him his time. And he knew Patrick year was coming up this year, so he's going to use Patrick a lot more this year. And I think they're going to get it done. And I just want to give a shout out. I see my buddies tuning in to the show tonight. My buddy grew up with in high school, named Bubba. Bubba Pearson, Kelvin Pearson, and I just thank him for tuning in tonight to the show. And hey, man, everybody's Ocala, man, tuning in. I appreciate that, man. And as Krich continue to blow up. And but yeah, I do think that we'll get it done. I think Jimbo got a lot of guns up there, and he's got a lot of talent. He had a great recruiting year. So we're looking for big things out of Florida State. We just got to get past Alabama, and everything else is going to be down here from there. So, hey,
yep. And by the way, just so you guys know, all my viewers know, next week I'm going to be doing a full preview of the Florida State-Alabama game. That's, like I said before, that's the game we've all been waiting on. Could be it's going to have a championship type of atmosphere. So looks like Carlo is tuning in. He said the champ is here.
Yeah.
So like I said before, I think the key to Florida State season, key game is going to be that Alabama game. That's going to be the key game. So we got to see what happens once they get past Alabama and see what happens there. But like you said before, it's going to come down to Florida State and Clemson. That's going to be the game that decides the ACC. But I also want to do a little preview about the SEC as well, which I know you and Chris Price have a lot to talk about when it comes to the SEC. Obviously, the big question with the SEC is who's going to compete with Alabama. Who's going to compete with Alabama in the SEC East? I read some early articles. Early articles got saying Georgia's going to have a pretty good year. They're saying Georgia could make it to that SEC championship game against Alabama. The question is going to be who's going to compete with Alabama. You got Georgia, Tennessee, South Carolina, but obviously I also want to ask you a quick question. Do you think that Georgia can get past Florida this year? Can they get it done against those Gators and make it into the SEC championship game? Can they do it this year?
Well, hey, I'm going to go ahead and put my opinion out there, and I'm just interested to see what Chris Price got to say about that. But Georgia, for whatever reason, when they come down to Florida, they have a tendency of choking with them Gators. I've seen Georgia ranked number 2, 3 in the country and come down and lose to them busters that ain't even ranked. So just do their thing. I don't know what the coach got to do, whether they got to come down early or whether they got to come down late at the last minute. But I always root for Georgia because I'm married to a bulldog. But so hey, I think I hope they get it done this year. But those Gators always play tough in Jacksonville. So hey, we'll see. That's yet to be determined. But I want to hear what Chris Price got to say about that one.
All right, let me tune into Chris Price real quick because I'm looking at something here that's saying they predicting Tennessee to go 4-4 in the SEC. They're predicting 4 losses out of Tennessee, but they're projecting Georgia to have a 6-2 record in the East,
Mm.
Florida to have a 6-2 record. So I want to see what he got to say about his Tennessee Vols and see what he
Yeah.
says the key game is going to be about Tennessee. So stay with
All
me
right.
on the show. Tune back
Will do.
in. I'm gonna switch right back into Chris Price coming to you from Atlanta, Georgia. All right, we're inviting back in Chris Price from Atlanta, Georgia. Like I said, it's big Tennessee Vol. There he is, Chris Price, talking about the SEC now. Looking at some information here. Who do you think is going to compete with Alabama in the SEC East? What do you think about your Tennessee Vols? Like I said, this thing I'm looking at here, they're projecting Tennessee to go 8-4 this year. They think Alabama might have possibly 1 loss, but they're predicting Georgia and Alabama to be in the SEC championship. What do you think about that?
You looking at Athlon? Is that what you're looking at? Did I just call
Well,
you out?
Athlon. That's what they're saying. But everybody's across the board obviously is still saying Alabama's going to be the top contender. You know, Nick Saban, he just reloads every year. I know they got a lot of players that went to the NFL, but you can never count Alabama out. But I want to see the SEC East get competitive this year. What do you think?
Top three is going to be competitive. Your Georgia, Florida, Tennessee is going to be competitive because they all have these question marks that since we don't know them right now, and it's not even a lean one way or lean the other. With me for Georgia, the offensive line has to improve. The problem that we have with the top three in the East right now is that they could all be 7-5. They could all be 10-2. They could all do that. So it's really whose question marks get answered. And we don't know that yet. With Georgia, I mean, they got the same guys coming back. So when it comes to their offensive line, have they improved? How much have they improved? And are they going to improve enough to be able to compete with Tennessee and Florida this year? Because last year it wasn't that way. With Florida, they lost, I believe it was about 7 or 8 of their starters. They lost their starting safety this year. I think a torn ACL. I think it was not ACL, Achilles or some of that nature. He's out for the year, so it's irrelevant, I believe. But so let's see how their defense goes. How much did they reload? And then, their quarterback. You obviously have to consider that because I just watched the practice video where they didn't complete a single pass. It was 3 straight minutes of drop balls overthrown. It looked terrible. It looked.
And I saw that. You saw Florida got that. And you saw Florida got that guy from Notre Dame, Malik Zaire. We'll see what he can do. Will he be the starter? That's always the Florida Gators' biggest question is what can they do at the quarterback position? That's always their biggest question.
What really concerns me about if I'm Florida is that Zaire, Felipe Franks, they haven't really separated themselves from Del Rio. Del Rio's still in the discussion right now, and he's not very good for what Florida wants to do. He showed some flashes, but most of the time he's not a very good quarterback for what they want to do. When it comes to Zaire, I think he's one-dimensional. I don't think he throws very well. He's a good runner, great athlete. But when it comes to actually throwing the ball, he's not as developed in that category as you would hope from a graduate transfer, really. And then Felipe Franks, I think, is really talented. He just has to get used to that speed, get used to playing college ball. So we'll see how he develops, of course. But that's if he wins the job, and he hasn't yet. I know you're worried about Tennessee. I know you're worried about Tennessee. We have a lot of question marks too. We have a possibility of being answered, but the chances of those question marks being answered in a positive way is very rare. So I'll be curious to see how we go and how our offensive line, if it does improve. Kind of the same thing as Georgia with Dobbs. He bailed them out a couple times. Now I do know that with Dobbs, he didn't know how to change protection, so he never changed protection. So if he sees a corner blitz coming, he didn't change anything. He just used his athleticism, and that worked for him. But that's not going to work the same for Dormany, or Garantano, which are the two guys that we have going. So we'll see what happens with that and who wins that starting job, and if they can change protection, which will make that line look a lot better too. So it's a three-headed race. And if I'm speaking objectively, I have absolutely no idea who's going to win. If I want to speak from a homer standpoint, Tennessee's going to blow everybody out of the water and to hell with everybody in Alabama.
Yep. So SEC is going to be interesting, and then the only other big conference I'm going to talk about tonight is the Big 12. Obviously, they're predicting that Oklahoma's going to make a big comeback here. They got Baker Mayfield coming back. Obviously, their former head coach Bob Stoops, retired not too long ago. So they're predicting Oklahoma to come out of the Big 12. But, Big 12, that's always a toss-up as well. It usually comes down to Oklahoma. Then you have Texas. You got the Longhorns with new head coach Bob Herman. Let's see what he does. Tom Herman, I'm sorry. See what he does with the Texas Longhorns. They've been struggling on the offensive side for sure. Coach coming out of Houston, he wants to run a fast-paced offense. So I'm going to keep a close eye on Texas and see what they do in the Big 12 with this new coach of theirs, and see can they make a comeback. But we shall see. And then the other thing that I did see that came out today, I know you guys probably saw this as well. The AP poll has released their preseason top 25. So get a look at this. So I'm going to just go through, I guess I'll mention we'll do the top 20. So we got, obviously, they got Alabama at number 1. They got, who's at 2? Who they putting at 2? Ohio State. You can't forget about Urban Meyer and Ohio State. They got Florida State at 3, USC 4, Clemson at 5, Penn State 6, Oklahoma 7, Washington 8, Wisconsin 9, Oklahoma State 10, Michigan 11, Auburn is 12, followed right behind them, LSU at 13. Then they got Stanford 14, Georgia 15, Louisville 16, Florida 17, Miami 18. Look at that. And then they got South Florida at 19, Kansas State at 20. They got your Vols at 25. They got the Tennessee coming in at 25. Virginia Tech 21. So AP poll just been released. Now, the next thing I want to ask you about, like I said, next week I'm going to go more in detail with college football and some of the games. But you asked me an interesting question earlier, Chris Price. We're switching gears a little bit. What do you think about this Colin Kaepernick situation in the NFL? The guy, he stood up for what he believed. He took he kneeled during the national anthem, and none of the NFL teams are picking up this guy. This has been a big topic in the NFL recently. What's your take on that? Then I'm gonna see what Mr. Kelvin B. Richardson thinks about that as well. Teams are passing on Colin Kaepernick. I know you remember that guy.
Yeah, you're going to draft him on your first pick on the fancy draft, aren't you? You're pretty excited. Well, I think we probably all agree here that he's a backup quarterback in the NFL right now at best. And I think a lot of owners don't want his team, his staff, and everybody else asked about Kaepernick and the stuff that Kaepernick put on Twitter. And I don't think he's good enough to overcome that. So you have a Marshawn Lynch who is good enough to overcome that. He's going to be a starter. Kenny Stills, he's going to be a starter. And you got a bunch of other guys in the league that have done the same thing, but they're going to be a starter. Arian Foster did it too. He's just not good enough. So he's not in the NFL. With Kaepernick, last year, I know he went, I think it was 16 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, but he went one win, 10 losses. So it is, unless you want to be the Jacksonville Jaguars, you don't really want to start this guy. He's not going to win you games. The only thing worse than watching Kaepernick is watching this eclipse that you pumped up for everybody.
The eclipse, that's a whole nother ball game. I'm here in Palm Beach County, and I didn't have my eclipse goggles on, but I did see outside. It did get darker, but apparently without the goggles, you couldn't really see anything. But to me, hey, it was a big deal. A lot of people, it was a very big deal. A lot of people saw a lot better view than I did, but I don't know what you saw, but Maybe next
That
time
guy,
we'll be in the path of totality, my friend.
that guy Noah Brown, he couldn't even see it with his bare eyes. He's outside looking at it with his bare eyes. That crazy guy. Good, good. He won't be able to see this broadcast. He'll be able to hear it though. That'll be all right.
But yeah, so hang tight for me, Chris. Hang tight 1 second. Let me see what my dad thinks about this Colin Kaepernick situation because he asked me about it last week, but I didn't really go in too much detail with him about it. Let me see what he thinks about NFL teams passing up on this guy. As you know, Dolphins picked up Jay Cutler. I know you saw that.
Yeah.
They got Jay Cutler. I mean, we'll see what happens. We'll see what the Dolphins are trying to do with that. So hang on one
But I think
second, Chris. Yeah,
with Jay Cutler, that's different. He knows the system. That's why.
he knows what's going on. All right,
Yeah,
so hang
he
on
knows good.
1 second. Let's see. All right, I'm inviting in Kelvin B. Richardson once again from Ocala, Florida. Let me get his take on this Colin Kaepernick situation. So what do you think about Colin Kaepernick? Obviously, he took a kneel during the national anthem with everything that's going on. He voiced his opinion publicly.
Right.
And a lot of the NFL teams are deciding to pass up on him. This guy right now doesn't have a job. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, I never disagree with a person standing up for what they believe in. And I have to disagree with my friend Chris Price. I think he is a starting quarterback. The guy is a pretty good quarterback. And, compared to some of those guys out there that's throwing the ball away and losing game after game, I think that there is a place for him. And I don't think he should be blackballed for standing up for what he believes in. You got owners stand up for what they believe in. You got, all kind of things going on in this country right now for people that what they believe in. But I think he should have another chance in the NFL. I think he should be on somebody's team. He's too talented of a guy. He does a lot of great things off the field that he's not being recognized for. And giving out giving out a lot of money and stuff of that nature. So I think he can start for a team out there that got some quarterbacks throwing these balls away, man. So hopefully somebody will give him a chance. I see down in Tampa Bay, when I saw the Hard Knocks, the backup quarterback down there got hurt. So I don't know. Maybe he can go down to Tampa Bay and be under Jameis Winston protege.
That'd be interesting. So, so my last topic of the night for you guys for the fresh cut is, like I said before. Matter of fact, let me pull it up. So the college football games this Saturday. It's the official start of college football. Nothing too exciting. I'll go over the games that are being played on the 26th. But the main thing that you want to tune into Saturday night. All right, we have Floyd Money Mayweather, 49-0, has not lost a fight. He's put 49 in front of him. 49 have came up short. He said that himself. So what do you think about this Mayweather-McGregor fight? We had a lot of build-up to it. Press conferences, a lot of people thought it was all pre-hyped and a lot of things were pre-planned. But do you think that this UFC guy by the name of Conor McGregor, can he come in and hand Floyd Mayweather his first loss this Saturday, or will we see Floyd go 50-0 and call it quits for good? What's your prediction on this Saturday's fight?
Well, I think Floyd Mayweather is too smart of a fighter to go in there and just let this guy knock him out, but he's got to be careful. Conor McGregor got some hard punches. I mean, the fighting that they do, man, I mean, those guys are tough, man, and those guys are vicious, and they go for the kill. So Floyd Mayweather being smart, Team Money Mayweather, he got to be smart and he's got to be careful, and I think he'll come out on top, but I wouldn't bet on him. That's one of those fights that I wouldn't bet on. I mean, Vegas is going to go crazy on that fight, but I wouldn't predict that Mayweather just going to go in there and knock him out, man. So he's got to be careful, but I'm rooting for Mayweather because he's a smart guy. He's a boxer. But one interesting thing that they did is they agreed to use 8-ounce gloves. And from what I saw, that the 8-ounce gloves is in favor of McGregor. You know, they're a lot lighter. You know, so I don't know why Mayweather agreed to that, but that could be a game changer in this fight, man. So I'm gonna have to find somewhere to watch that. You know, and then because it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna go down there. It's I think one of the best fights. And before Mayweather, he stick and he move and he moving. But this guy McGregor has got to make him a name of himself, and he's coming at him with everything he's got. So it's going to be interesting. I'll be up late watching it, and Team Money Mayweather.
All right, I agree. My prediction, fresh cut, K-Rich, is that Mayweather will go 50-0. Like you said, I think the guy is too smart. He's a great defensive fighter. I don't think he's going to just let McGregor come in and hit him like that for the whole fight. But we shall see. That's going to be, like I said, he's had 49 professional fights, 26 fights by knockout. So Mayweather was ranked by ESPN as the great pound-for-pound boxer of the last 25 years in 2016. He only needs one more win to surpass Rocky Marciano, who was had a flawless record of 49-0. So we'll see what happens.
But let me ask you. Let me ask you a question before you go. Now, I think the UFC, they're fighting with them. They only go 3 rounds, and boxing, you got to have that endurance. So boxing, I think they go like 12 rounds. So it's going to be interesting. But look that up for me and make sure I'm right on that. But I think the UFC, they only go 3 rounds because it's kind of vigorous. But boxing go 12. So after the 3rd round, if McGregor's still in there, if Mayweather is still there, then I think that he'll wear him down, man, and go for the knockout.
All right, so let me see what Chris Price thinks about this big fight coming up. Like I said, by the way, and like I said, not too many good college football games this Saturday, but let me see what he thinks about this fight coming up. Hang on 1 second. Turn back into the broadcast. I'm going to go back to Chris Price. One moment. All right, so I'm inviting back in Chris Price. Seems to be working pretty well. All right, Chris Price tuning back into the show, coming live to you from Atlanta, Georgia. Chris P., what's your prediction on this weekend's fight? Conor McGregor, Floyd, Money, Mayweather. What do you say goes down this Saturday night? One of the biggest fights that we've had in quite some time. What do you think is going to happen?
If it was real, which I have a hard time believing, then definitely Mayweather. But Mayweather loves himself some money. So I don't know if he's going to have a controversial decision so he can go ahead and do round 2 and make $100 million more.
Yep. Because Mayweather gets paid for the amount of time that he's in the ring. If it goes 12 rounds, this guy making a lot of money.
Yeah, and he does. I mean, it's clear by the last big time match that we had that with what's his name being hurt, he had to bust his shoulder. So it's clear that just for the sake of fighting, just the fight itself, he doesn't want to be your best, my best. They don't care about that. I think it's all for money. So and then hey, to each their own. Same with McGregor. I don't think he's doing this, to get into the boxing arena. So if it was a real fight, which I have a hard time believing, I would say Mayweather. But I wouldn't be surprised if McGregor won on some controversial decision. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right, so my friend Carlo just made a comment in response to my dad's question. He said title fights can be up to 5 rounds in UFC, but he doesn't think McGregor has the endurance to go 12 rounds with McGregor. So that's interesting to know. But like I said, we shall see. I'm going to definitely have to find somewhere to watch this fight. But, the fight's going to kind of overshadow what's going on in college football this weekend. We don't have too many big matchups for the 26th, but we do have number 19 South Florida and Charlie Strong playing San Jose State. And then we got number 14 Stanford playing against Rice. Just a couple of games to kick off the college football season. And one last thing that this just came out, as you know, NBA wise, I'm a big Laker fan. Kobe retired. We've been struggling for a lot of years. For those of you who haven't read, Magic Johnson is at the center of an NBA probe involving what they call tampering with Paul George. Apparently, the Indiana Pacers are trying to file charges against the Lakers for what they call impermissible contact. And then although Paul George signed with the Oklahoma City Thunder, they're filing charges against the Lakers. I think it's all kind of silly. I really don't know what that's all about, but they're trying to say the Lakers tampered with Paul George, although they didn't land the guy. But the NBA, Chris Price, that's a whole nother story. Next summer we got LeBron as a free agent. That's going to be big news. A lot of changes going to be going on starting next summer. So NBA, that'll get started. I think first game start like early October. But like I said, college football, man, I'm excited. I can't wait for next Saturday. I can't wait for September 2nd. You guys got a big game too. Tennessee, Georgia Tech playing in the new Georgia Dome. I'm definitely tuning in that. That's an ACC SEC matchup. But football is back. You might as well go ahead and say it. But yeah, man, college football is back. You got anything else you want to add as far as college football? What you expect out of next year or next week's big games? We got a lot of big games: Florida, Michigan, Florida State, Alabama, Tennessee, Georgia Tech. Anything else you want to add to the predictions for your football?
I'm liking the next week, to be honest with you. I know that's going to be a little hot take here, but you got Auburn at Clemson, you got Georgia at Notre Dame, and you got Oklahoma at Ohio State.
Yeah, that's going to be a big one.
That's a pretty good week right there. Yeah. So, whatever week it is, I don't really care. It's a big week for me. So,
yep.
It's college football. I don't really care too much as long as we don't have to watch the stupid eclipse.
The eclipse. So I may do something separate and talk about that. That was the big event of today. See what's going on with the eclipse. A lot of people said it was overrated. A lot of people said it was great. So, I don't know. For those of you who saw it, those of you who thought it was great, so be it. I've seen a little bit here in Palm Beach County, but nothing too spectacular.
You punched a 6-year-old kid to get their glasses, didn't you?
Yeah, some random kid was like, "Hey, you use these glasses. Don't look at it directly." I'm like, I definitely don't want to blind yourself by trying to look at that. That's not good. That's no good. But yeah, Chris P. So here's the deal. So I'm definitely going to bring you back as a special guest at some point. I'm probably going to wait till after football season starts so I can talk to you about some games in specific. Tennessee, Georgia. I'm gonna definitely have to bring you. I'm probably have to bring my mom on. That'd be great. My mom, Chris Price. That's gonna be an interesting show there. Probably bring you on for Tennessee, Florida. Do a little preview there. Because I always want to see Tennessee.
I'm gonna have your mama come on as a live guest, straight out of Neyland.
During the game. Yeah, that'd be great.
Straight out of Neyland, right there. Just so I can zoom in on the scoreboard for her. How about that? You like that, Mama Rich? We'll go ahead and zoom in.
Georgia got to get some revenge from last year. So, but yeah, so, this is my first test going live with 2 viewers. Seems to work out pretty smoothly. I don't get as much feedback as I did with the Google Hangouts and stuff. Like I said, I can only bring one person on the screen at a time, but switching back and forth, not too difficult, not too bad. And you look a lot clearer. So like I said, clear. I think Facebook Live is a lot clearer. But next week's show, the 28th, is going to be a special show. That's when I'm actually going to break down some of the previews of some of the big games we have coming up on September 2nd. Oh, and I'll also be able to talk about this McGregor-Mayweather fight. I'll be able to break down round for round what happened, pound for pound. Like, we'll know what's going down this Saturday. Chris Price said, Mama Rich, y'all should come up for that game. Yeah, that'd be a good one, man. Tennessee, Georgia. That's going to be – you guys beat them between the hedges last year, I believe, so that's going to be a big game. But next week, Monday the 28th, will be Fresh Cut K-Rich Show, episode 46. I think I already have my 2 special guests in mind for next week, going live to you via Facebook. Remember Chris Price. Remember, tell your friends, share my videos. Everybody else share it, like it. The more views, the better. I'm going to go ahead and upload this video, watch it myself, see how the playback is with the picture-in-picture and everything like that. So my mom says, let me check my calendar. I'm sure if she gets a ticket to that game, she'll be there. She'll be there.
Oh, so none of that works.
So we'll see. So Fresh Cut with K Rich. Tune in next Monday, the 28th, 7 o'clock p.m. If you want to be a special guest on my show, let me know. Comment on my video, and I can make room. I can invite anybody into this. If you want to be a special guest on one show, I'll definitely invite you into the show. So tune in, like, and share. Peace out. Chris Price, Kelvin B. Richardson, thank you guys for tuning in for the first show, inviting special guests. Peace out. Coming to you live, by the way, from Palm Beach County, Florida. See you.